Hey everybody, Lumini here. Now, thank you for joining me for this quite lengthy video where we go through just about every other high rank hunt. So, alright, first things first, Chatacabra. Once again, there's nothing much to add about Chatacabra, just like with the low rank variant. The main thing that I'll just say that what I did not properly utilize is that I did not fully utilize the hammer buffs that were that became available at around this patch. So unfortunately there's a big lack of big bang, and I think that if I actually did some big banging, then we could probably see a good increase to the time, but otherwise there's not much to it. You just kind of lock him down. You can super armor some of his hits like you just saw whenever you're charging up the mighty brutal bang. But yeah, I mean, it's Chatacabra. He's fun to beat up, and for the most part you just have him locked down for the entire hunt. Not much else to say. Just make sure that your set building is decent and you'll be just fine. Honestly, you might be able to get the same results with just about every other hammer or so. But that's all I have for Chatacabra. Now, what I will say is that for high rank 4, I actually find high rank 4 to be a lot more interesting than the other low tier high rank monsters that I've done in the past, just mainly because I feel like Wild's variety of monsters is actually a lot more fleshed out. But I think, as you'll see, a lot of the monsters can just be locked down fairly easily. Quematrice is especially an example of this. Now, if I remember right, I also did not utilize the Big Bang over here too. So we're gonna see this together, because usually whenever I'm recording, I'm practically doing a live reaction as we go. This is pretty much one take. But yeah, so you just start it off, get in your sneak attack, and then immediately into the KO. The nice thing about the low rank monsters, I will say for sure, is that you don't necessarily have to invest in earplugs. And so you can just get a little extra damage for it. Not that it would matter too much, but you know, sometimes a couple extra points of damage can mean the difference between getting underneath certain time goals that you might have for yourself. And from what I remember, just like the low rank variant, if you break the head and he's not KO'd, then you're able to get yourself a little free topple right there. So for the most part in this fight, there's really no reason you shouldn't be aiming for the head 100% of the time. Oh, that's right. And now that I'm actually looking at the screen, this is also, since it's the mid-patch for the title update, Max Might got nerfed, but I'm still using Max Might the same way as I normally would. It's not until a bit later where I finally decide to actually switch up the set some. Nothing too bad. Again, if you utilize Big Bang, you could definitely get like a sub 110 easy. And again, there's no reason not to hit his face. Now, as for Balahara, I'm going to tell you right now, this run's a sloppy as hell run, but for whatever reason, it was my best run that I've got, and I've got very little patience for this monster. The big reason is because normally the first action he ever wants to do is to climb that pillar. And in order to really convince him otherwise, you just have to keep on wailing on him to get him to not even think about it. Get him at least slightly enough distance away to where he doesn't truly look at it. But I think it's more of like a random chance, because I would say that out of all my attempts, the amount of times I've gotten him to not climb is probably around 10%, maybe less than that. So this is a rare run already. But that being said though, if he actually does start climbing, if you hit him, granted I don't know the strength of the attack because I always get him with a mighty big bang when it happens. If you at least hit him just as he's climbing the pillar and he's still on ground floor, you get a free dunk right there without having to use the wedge beetle on him. Because otherwise, if he does climb, then you're going to have to be kind of fast to get on the wedge beetle, and then make sure that you swing fast enough and hard enough to where you can get the distance to hit his face, or at least any part of his body to dunk him. That, or if you're doing freestyle, I guess you could just shoot him down with a rock, doesn't matter. From what I could tell, I don't think it actually matters how much damage you do, just as long as you just get a singular hit. Probably even get away with shooting him with a trank knife, if, so yeah. Otherwise, this fight just kind of goes as you would expect. You just beat on him. But out of all the low rank or the low tier monsters, this is at least the first one where you have to use earplugs if you want to just keep on wailing on them and do more damage. Now granted, I guess depending on your weapon, you could just forego that, just guard it, get offensive guard procced, but otherwise for hammer sake, you're probably just going to want to use earplugs. Now for Lala Barina, bit of an interesting case, just because the main difficulty of the fight actually comes from the repositioning, I think. And so it's just another monster that you're just going to want to ideally try to flinch as often as possible. Now the nice thing about it is that her enrage animation is kind of long, and you also don't have to worry about earplugs, so you can just invest in a little extra damage. I usually put in the investment in the ambush. The other nice thing about Lala Barina is that since it is a spider monster, every single leg is a free topple, which makes the fight pretty trivial. But that being said, if you decide to go for the leg lock, you ultimately lose time for consistency. Because I've seen a run where they don't really leg lock her at all, and they go for as many headshots and ass shots as possible. And that run ends up being like super fast. I think it was like a 1:11 or so, but I was like, screw this. I'm not gambling that hard. So I decided to go more for the legs. Thankfully for me, I actually decided to do the spin the wind move right there, and I was able to catch her on the reposition, which is, again, where I think a lot of people probably struggle. Especially on the tempered variants of her, I would imagine. But otherwise, for the optional quests, it's no biggie. I think on average, a lot of people should be getting at least between 135 or less. Now for Congalala. Congalala is an annoying booger. He's not hard per se, but a lot of getting good times against him revolves around how often can you actually properly hit his head. Because the rest of his body is like around 40-45 hit zone, while his main face is about a 60 hit zone. But here's the big deal. His arms get in the way a lot, and his tail gets in the way, and his hand gets in the way whenever he's eating his food. And the name of the game for Congalala is to flinch lock him, so that way he is constantly eating that food no matter what. So it doesn't matter how you do it, whether it's focus strikes, you just keep on going unga boonga on him. You just got to make sure you hit that face, because once he's done eating his mushroom, the actual fight begins, and that's where things tend to go pretty haywire, because in comparison to his body, his moves are rather wide sweeping, and the more you flinch him, the more he's going to keep on trying to reposition himself to where you can't continue to flinch him. So as you see right now, like now the fight's actually starting, and the type of mushroom that he has will kind of change up your opening mid-fight significantly, because if he has a poison mushroom, then it's whatever, because he's just going to take a step back and he's going to do his dookie breath, in which case for hammer you just do your big bang. For paralysis mushroom is actually the big annoying one, because he'll just do his little breath stream of paralysis and it'll fuck you up. Blast mushroom, from what I remember, he doesn't do it often. He'll just step back just like the dookie shroom, and he'll just do an explosion breath, kind of like Teostra. But now we get to my favorite monster, Rathian. As y'all guys know, I enjoy beating on Rathian, and this is also the first time that I actually switched my set to include the Guardian Anjanath set bonus, just so I don't lose maximum might anytime I need to charge up my hammer. just because missing out on 30% crit does hurt quite a lot. For me at this point, there's not much I can really say about Rathian other than earplugs are very, very good for getting that opening in. I don't utilize the spin to win nearly as hard just because I just don't think it's necessary. And big fact for you, in case if you haven't, or if I haven't talked about it, if you break her wing, she's always going to do that little fail flight animation. And whenever she's doing her fireball for the first time, doesn't matter if it's the big fireball or if it's the tinier fireballs, you can focus strike that shit. Focus strike it, and then you'll get a big top roll out of her. Like so. But yeah, like I said, for this one, I utilized more the spin to win because the reason why I didn't utilize Big Bang as much is because Big Bang is very finicky on monsters like Rathian, just because her wings really get in the way of you being able to do a proper hit. And same thing with the smaller monsters, because the hammer will sometimes get the back end of a monster and you end up losing your whole hit zone for it, which it gets very old very fast, so I just opt to not use it for this particular fight. There's too many small monsters around to make things messy. For Rompololo. Rompololo is not a hard fight. He just gets annoying for some people, I can imagine, just because the explosions he'll create on the ground can be quite large. The other kind of annoying part about him is that he doesn't quite take a whole lot of crazy damage. I mean, you can just kind of hit him on the head the whole time. Like for hammer, from what I remember, scripting wise, I was like, alright, KO. And then from the KO, you could just focus strike at that, and then hit him in the head again, get him to flinch, and you just kind of keep on going, and you could just kind of like tank that too, the small little hits. And I got kind of lucky with my positioning to where the tail did not hit me. But otherwise, enough hits to the head or even to the body, and he'll just deflate, and you'll just get a big ass window to utilize. But again, the only problem is that when he's all deflated and stuff, I don't think you get the extra like weak zone damage. Again, he's just more of a tanky guy from what I have seen, and as a result can be a little bit annoying because for a guy who is weak, it just feels like you should be doing more damage. Now for right there, I mistimed it, but you can offset that. For those who've seen the low rank version for this quest, that's something that you can offset. And then I just kind of missed the offsets right there, but otherwise, it's just mostly a flinch fest, and there he goes, he's deflated again. And at this point, he's skulled, so it's just a matter of time. Just go ahead and start up some Big Bangs. I will say, now that I've actually properly utilized the Big Bang, I am loving the buff to it, because it's a move that should feel very powerful. And it was very unfortunate that it felt like slapping the monster with a wet noodle. But yeah, if you get the offset all in for sure, you'll easily see like a 145, and I expect something less. Now for Gypceros, here's what I will say. Out of all the monsters I have fought in high rank, Gypceros was probably the one that I enjoyed fighting the most. And I think a big part of that deals with, for the most part, you do have to deal with him playing dead towards the end. And the result of that is that you have to deal with him like just dying on the first frame that he wakes up, which is very nice. Now, unfortunately, I did miss that mighty brutal swing, but if the crest itself is not very hard to break as well, and if he decides to start trying to flash during that, you can get a massive focus strike topple that just ruins his day. But yeah, pretty soon the death should be coming up, and the death is not hard to deal with. In fact, it's just free damage. You should just note to yourself that he's not actually going to be dead yet. So it's like one major combo, and then as you can see, the Mighty Brutal Swing. So I decided to do a little bit of that. I end up mistiming it, so I'm like, alright, I gotta get away from him. And I'm trying to catch him frame 1, but thankfully I managed to get him on like the little side swing too. You could honestly shoot him with a knife if you want to, just for the disrespect on him. Otherwise, again, he's dead. Not a hard fight, but for me personally, it's a very fun fight, which is very surprising to say because I think Gypceros in Gen 4 is very annoying. And I think a lot of that is because they've reduced the amount of tripping monsters do whenever they're just turning around. So I will say, I don't think I chose the best spawn for this quest, but I ended up still using this footage just because I was so pleased with how smoothly it went that I just had to use it. So again, for those who aren't aware, ambushing Hirabami usually makes them topple like that. And then from here, it's just a lock. I decided to go for the full golf swing, KO him, and then he's just over. Now the reason why I kind of looked to the side is because from what I remember, one of the scorpion monsters actually started to put him to sleep, and I was like, what the heck? And like, and now agitator actually activates. That's something for newer players to keep in mind. You may cross the agitator threshold to activate agitator, but it won't actually begin until the monster is actually able to do their, at least the beginning of their enrage animation, or at least around that. It's just something to keep in mind because sometimes a lock is too good of luck. Now thankfully, thanks to the buffed range of the focus strike, I actually managed to be able to catch that. But yeah, as you can see, like, even if I had technically like a better spawn to choose from, I felt that this run was at least a nice showcase. So yeah, earplugs, get that ambush in, KO, beat him up, probably get another KO, and then focus strike anytime he starts flying, and then you'll usually be able to bring him down if that focus strike is on a wound on the head. Now lastly for Nerscylla, so technically this run is like half a second faster than my Nerscylla run that I already have, but I decided to go with this one anyways just because it's just slightly faster, and I think it also kind of shows a slightly different moveset that works against her, because from what I remember against Nerscylla the first time for me, I utilized a elementally heavy set, and that probably would still work better here if I utilized the spin to win more, but I decided, nah, I don't want to. I'm done with that for now. I will say a suggestion for potential alternative skills to use on this fight is Mind's Eye. Just because I do find that since Nerscylla is larger, the Chelicerae are a lot more in the way. You might get a lot more value out of just Mind's Eyeing like the legs whenever you try to like get more out of the trips, and you get more damage out of the side hits. Otherwise, if you're able to just hit the head 100% of the time or hit the ass 100% of the time, then you'll be fine. But as you can see, like some of those hits, and especially like hits against the legs, I would have benefited from the Mind's Eye. But yeah, that's it. That is all the monsters for High Rank 4, not including Kutku because I plan on having that in a different video. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like seeing more of these types of runs, feel free to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Later.